Man, I am just excited that to be celebrating Resurrection Sunday. I'll get my mouth starts working right here in a minute. But Resurrection Sunday with all of you. There's some of you here that you're as excited about Easter as I am. There's some of you here that you're just looking for something new, so you decided to check us out. And for some, this may be your first time in church in a long time, or first time ever in church. We believe that God meets you wherever you're at. So it doesn't matter if you've been coming for a long time, or you're new here, or you're just kind of checking it out. And you're like, I don't even know anything about this church thing, but I thought I'd come because it's Easter. God meets you right where you're at, but we believe He doesn't want to leave you there. So we're praying that today you would just feel His connection, know that God's present, and that He would speak to you. And so, in fact, I pray for open hearts to receive and ears to hear this morning the Word of God. See, we live in this ever-changing world. Especially when it comes to religion and spirituality. Like this constant growth of a belief that, going around is that all paths lead to God. All religions lead to God. Like what you do you, I do me, that's like we'll both get there. And you especially see this prevalent when someone passes away. Because it doesn't matter like how rotten of a person they are, they're in heaven. I mean, that's the kind of the belief. That's kind of the thought process. They're up in heaven, fishing with. I've heard fishing with God. I've heard. I even heard one person say that. Yeah, he's up in heaven, cracking a cold one with God right now. I'm like, I don't know about that. But this idea that no one, like all paths lead to heaven. You just be a good person, just do good things, and you're all set. And really, this idea of God is, or a higher power, spirituality, eternity, these are not controversial subjects. Everybody talks about them. No one gets offended when you're talking about eternity, that kind of thing. What happens and what becomes controversial is when we bring up Jesus. And it's not the fact that He existed, because most people like believe that Jesus existed. They don't really argue the fact that He was, that the historical data supports that Jesus walked this earth and that He was crucified. No one really dislikes His teachings. We're about, hey, give to the poor. Yeah, I like that. Love your neighbor. I like that. Forgive people. Hey, that's good teaching. Help those who are overlooked. No one really has an issue with His teachings. The controversy comes when you're faced with who He claimed to be. In fact, in John chapter 14, John records Jesus saying this. Verse 6, Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That's controversial. People are like, oh, whoa, hold your horses. He can't be the only way. Or can He? See, these words by Jesus shut down the idea that all paths lead to God, because He says, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. He doesn't say, I am a way. I am a truth. I am a life. No, He says, He's the way. He's the truth. So He's either a liar and a lunatic, or he was who He says He was. See, He literally says, I'm the only way in. No one comes in except through me. But what about those other guys? I mean, they have some beautiful beliefs too, but they're not the same. See, in Buddhism, they don't believe in a God. There is no final existing place. They believe in this system of countless rebirths. Like measured by your works and how good you live your life, you're reborn and you're reborn and you're reborn. If you're really, really bad, you may come back as a dung beetle. If you're really, really good, evidently, you come back as a cow. But the whole idea is that you would is to eventually be good enough that you stop existing. And then you have Hinduism. Hinduism, there is an impersonal God. And like this God that is just doesn't care about you at all. Like he's impersonal, not available. The way you approach Him is through deities or statues or idols, through worship. This is a very fearful religion. It's very oppressing. and whatnot. But both Buddhism and Hinduism, there is no forgiveness of sins. There is no supernatural help. There's only karma. So this idea of you get what you deserve. And then you have the Muslim belief. They worship Allah, a personal God. There are no secondary gods. There's a total ban on idols. And your standing with God depends on your religious devotion and your works, how good you are, how well you follow the Quran. And then we got this New Age thing that's going on. There's no personal God. It's all about higher consciousness. Like I'm in a higher state of thinking, higher consciousness. It's all about what the universe wants, the cosmos, how things align, Mother Nature. Like you have that belief, and then comes Christianity. This belief in a personal God that sent his son, Jesus, to die and to show us love and forgiveness. However, Christianity can go way off the rails when it becomes religion. You see, there's some truth and beauty to all world religions, but they're not the same. In fact, every single one of them claim to be the only way. There's not a religion on this planet that says, hey, there's multiple paths, you just do whatever. No, each one says they're the only way. The only people that believe all paths go the same place are people that are not on a path. When we get caught up in religion, things get sideways. When we think church is about religion, things get sideways. This is why so many Christians are out of touch, don't have a clue, not disconnected. They're convoluted in their ideas. It becomes about about what the church can give me, or what I deserve from the pastor, or what so and so's doing, or what they're doing. When a Christian begins to be religious, they become out of touch. Sometimes so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good, or they become narrow-minded, and like they look at everybody in judgment. They become judgmental. And it seems for some, there's some strange correlation with the idea that the more religious you are, the bigger your wife's hair becomes. If you're Pentecostal or have been around for a while, you understand that joke. If not, Google it. Big hair. Flop back. See, Jesus didn't walk this earth to create a religion. He didn't. He didn't come here like God didn't say, hey, Jesus, go down, establish another religion. We need one. Another system of rules, go do it. No. Jesus came to create relationship. Specifically, a relationship between us and God. That's what he established. So today on this Resurrection Sunday, I want us to consider Jesus. I want to point us back to the reason of this celebration, and that's Jesus, his life on this earth, and his resurrection. So today we're going to concentrate on three aspects of Jesus for your consideration. The first one of these is this: consider the ministry of Jesus. Mark 2:16-17 says this: and the scribes of the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came to call the righteous, but not call the righteous, but sinners. So oftentimes when Christianity becomes religious, we begin to look at everybody and their sin and everything. I can't have anything to do with them. I can't till they come to Jesus. I just can't handle it. And that's not how Jesus operated at all. Jesus was eating with sinners. He had relationship with sinners. He brought sinners out of their darkness into his light, but he did it through relationship. This reality that like those who don't need a physician, only sick needs a physician. I have a physical done every year, full blood lab work, everything that's required with the fire department, and they do all my stuff, and everything looks good. So you know what? After I get those results, I don't go like, well, maybe I should go see a cardiologist now. Like, nothing's wrong with me. I should go see a cardiologist. Or maybe, you know what? 42 now. Maybe I should just go start seeing a neurologist. No, you only go to those people when you need them. I don't randomly call my doctor and like, hey, I need to come in for a visit. No, when I start getting a scratchy throat, start not feeling great, run down everything, I'm like, maybe I ought to call Bailey. Get this checked out. But she lost her phone, so don't call Bailey. Thank you. That was awesome. But like this idea that like we don't realize our need for a Savior until things get messy. And oftentimes when we're so caught up in religion, we don't even consider him at all until things get messy. Like, oh no, I need Jesus now. Please come to me, oh tooth fairy God. Please be like the Easter bunny and bring me all the stuff I need. No. Jesus, when we consider his ministry and what he did, Jesus was all about loving the despised. When you think about the woman caught in adultery, this woman is caught in adultery. She's brought before and thrown before Jesus. She's probably not clothed. It says she was caught in the very act. I've always wondered as I read the story, where was the man? Like, was he one of the guys holding a stone going, like, yeah, we should totally do this. Yeah, she's terrible. She's terrible. But, like, where was the dude that, like, in this? But anyways, I digress. But Jesus' response when they throw her before him and say, hey, what are you going to do, Rabbi? Is not to condemn her, but he goes, okay, you who hasn't sinned, throw the first stone. And they all walked away one by one. Why? Because we're all sinful. We all, there's not nobody that can, judge anybody else because we all have sin in our lives. And then when they walk away, Jesus looks around and he says, hey, woman, where are your accusers? He's like, they're gone. He says, and neither do I accuse you either. Now go and sin no more. He doesn't leave her. He met her where she was at, but she left changed. And then we consider his miracles, the miracles that Jesus operated in. He opened blind eyes. He healed deaf ears. He made the mute to speak. He touched lepers. These are people with a skin disease where their skin was rotting off, and it was incurable. It was nasty. They'd be taken away from society, cast out, and Jesus laid his hands on them, and they were healed. He walked on water. He took a Happy Meal and fed 5,000 people with it. I mean, basically, it was loaves and fishes. You can't get that in a Happy Meal, but you don't really. He raised the dead. I mean, he did all these amazing miracles, and that's what his ministry was all about. And you think back, sometimes, when we see this happen in people's lives, miracles happen, we get kind of frustrated, just like the religious leaders did then. Why would they? Did you know how rotten that person was? Why would Jesus save them? Well, the religious leaders were doing the same thing. They never questioned his ability, his miracles. They never questioned because they saw it. They just wanted him to stop. Why? Because when ministry and miracles happen, it destroys religion and creates relationship. See, Jesus' ministry is all about that. In fact, he's still doing miracles today. We have a family in this church. Their name is David and Samantha Keene. I can remember when David came to the Omega program 7 years ago. He was taken directly out to reuse it, where we were doing some work with the Omega program. Got out of the car, gung-ho, ready to go, full of energy, just like he is now. That same laugh, everything about, David was David. But David had some tough things going on in his life. It was really, really rough for him. He had gotten in trouble with the law. He had it was really messed up. Kids had been taken away from him. His life was a wreck. But David was introduced to Jesus, and David grabbed a hold of Jesus. He grabbed a hold of the program. He grabbed a hold of the relationships in the church, and David began to change his life. And not long after that, he got his wife to come to the Omega program. I can remember when Sam showed up, and it was the first night at the house over on I can't remember what street it is, but she shows up to the house, and Michelle and I are there. We meet her. She is scared to death to even be here or what's going to happen. And like she's in the same situation with everything. Fast forward 7 years, Samantha gets connected with Dorinda Logus, begins to go and sit with Dorinda as she was struggling through cancer. And Dorinda began to sow into her through the Word of God and life. And they just did life together. And you see Samantha's life being transformed as David's life being transformed. And like they never looked back. It was like, man, Jesus, like, I'm just going forward. And like just recently, in the last 6 months, they came to me like, hey, Pastor, we just got all of our records erased or expunged. Like they got their kids back, they got everybody's back in their life, and God has completely transformed them. And it's a miracle. And I look at my life and like the miracle of me even being here, a kid from broken home and messed up background, sent away to live with his grandparents, messing up in college and all this stuff that went wrong in my life, for God to turn that around and connect and have people in my life to connect me to Jesus. And then I'm here today on this Easter Sunday preaching 2 sermons, 2 services, and looking at all these people. I'm going like, man, this is a miracle, God. I don't know how you got me here. But then I sit there and think about it, like, yeah, I do know how you got me here. Because I chose to have a relationship with you. See, relationship with Jesus equals new creation. Not better version. So oftentimes we think, well, I'm just a better version of myself. No, I'm not a better version. Samantha and David are not a better version of their old selves. They're a new creation. And what Jesus has done in our lives because of us allowing him to have a relationship with us has created something completely different for us. And that's what he wants for all of us. The second thing I want you to consider is the resurrection of Jesus. The resurrection of Jesus. See, Jesus was given up to be crucified because God loved us but hated our sin. And he had no path of having a relationship with us because of our sin. So he sent Jesus to come and die for us. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says this, for our sake he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. When we think about the cross and what Jesus went through, they say that his body was so torn up from the cat o' nine tails that his rib bones would have been exposed. There would have been no meat on his back left. You would have seen his rib bones. The muscle would have been just torn to shreds. And then they laid him on the cross, and they hammered nails through his wrists and through his feet. And then they hoisted him up there in what was a perfected form of the most gruesome and terrible form of death created by man. Because literally you would be on the cross, you'd begin to sink down, could not get air into your lungs. You had to pull yourself up on those nails and catch a breath till you no longer had the strength to pull yourself up and you suffocated. And in that, I think of Jesus as he pulls himself up to get enough air into his lungs to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I don't know that in the same situation that would have been me. I think it would have been more like, Father, get them, for they deserve what they get. But it isn't karma. It isn't, I get what I deserve. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then the next thing he says is, it's finished. What's finished? What's finished? This whole idea that I got to work for it. I've got to do something. I got to do all these right things to be in a relationship with God. Jesus created a bridge. And he says, into your hands, I surrender myself. That's what he says next to God. And it says the whole earth trembled. An earthquake happened in Jerusalem. And during that earthquake in the temple, the veil that separated the presence of God from everybody else was ripped in two, signifying that now we can all enter into presence with God. The bridge has been laid. We can walk across right into his throne room. See, it was so compelling what happened at the cross that the Roman centurion that hung him on the cross changed his way of thinking, and it's recorded that he said, "Surely this is the Son of God." How powerful that whole moment was. Then they laid him in the tomb. And 3 days later, the stone rolled away. And those who trust in Jesus know the truth of what happened that day. Peter said it this way: "You killed the author of life, but God raised him from the dead, and we are witnesses to this." See, some say, and this is a belief system going around, that Roman soldiers stole his body. That the Roman soldiers stole his body, hid it, and that's what happened. But really, that doesn't make any sense. Because if you want to kill an uprising, a religious uprising or something, all they had to do was produce the body and say, no, he didn't rise. They're liars. See, here's the body. And then some say, and there's a great video that Babylon Bee put out last week that kind of depicts this whole thing, this whole idea. It's funny as all get out. But some say the disciples took his body, that they overpowered the Roman guards and took his body. Or better yet, they paid the Roman guards off and had to get them to change their testimony of what happened, and that's how they pulled it off. These guys that were charged with, like, if you're watching this with your life, guard his body with your life. Hey, here's some money. Just tell him that he rose again or whatever. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, do you really expect any rational thinking person to believe that 11 small town guys that are uneducated devised the most elaborate and deceptive plan in all of history and pulled it off and were able to keep it a secret? I mean, you can't keep nothing a secret now. Like, hey, don't tell anybody. Get 12 guys together, come up with a lie, and ask everybody to keep it a secret and see if that happens. They pulled it off. They kept it a secret. For what purpose? What did they gain from it? They had no personal motive, nothing to like, oh, okay, if we do this, we're going to become rich. Nope. Didn't happen. Instead, they suffered extreme personal loss. All but one of them died as a martyr. And like gruesome deaths. For what? To cheat the world into being a better place? Consider this, only one of them doubted. His name was Thomas. If you study the history of what went on with him, he was an evangelist to India. He was so moved by Jesus' resurrection that he went to India to be a missionary. And it says that he was speared to death. He was so willing to keep up this lie that he was impaled. Or he saw something and he believed. And he was willing to give his life for it. So consider the ministry of Jesus, but also consider the resurrection of Jesus and what it means. And the last thing I would ask you to consider this morning is consider the eternal message of Jesus. Romans 3:22 says this: we are made right with God by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. And this is true for everyone who believes, no matter who you are. Doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, who your mama was or who your daddy was, who your grandpa was, what your family lineage history was, like how wealthy you are, how poor you are. Doesn't matter. See, it's Christ plus nothing else. Not Christ plus a bunch of rules, not Christ plus this, not Christ plus that. It's Christ plus nothing else. When we start adding to it, that's when it becomes religion. And when you take religion versus relationship, when you're living in religion, it's all about me. What I get, what I don't get, me working, how great I am, how great what I can do, how well I can, how much I fail. It becomes all about you. When you're walking in a relationship, it's all about Jesus, what he did for me. Because of him. He makes me right. He makes me clean. When you're living in religion, it becomes all about if I obey God, he will love me. If I do everything he says, if I follow the rules just right, then God will love me. Well, I have news for you. No matter where you're at, God cannot love you any more than he already does. There's no way. Whether you've accepted him or not, he cannot love you any more than he already does. When you're living in relationship, I begin to do what's right and obey because God loves me. And I want to be in a relationship with him. I want to be in connection with him. I want to have right standing with him. It becomes all about that. When you're living in religion, as the worship team goes ahead and heads back up here, when you're living in religion, it becomes all about do's and don'ts. If I do this, if I do that, if I don't do this, and I don't do that. It becomes all about this system of do's and don'ts. When it becomes about relationship with Jesus, it's about done. It's done. It's finished. It's covered. This Easter, I pray there's somebody that's hearing this and come to this realization that Jesus wants to have a relationship with you. It's not about fulfilling a religious duty or right or wrong. Number one question I get asked by new believers is, what are the rules? There are no rules. He did away with that so that we can have a relationship with him. It's all about living in a relationship with him. You guys, if the ushers would go ahead and come, we're going to take communion this morning. Jesus told his disciples, as often as you meet, do this in remembrance of me. The only prerequisite for taking communion is that you've made a decision to follow Jesus. What do you do to make a decision to follow Jesus? You confess with your mouth that he is Lord and believe in your heart that he rose Jesus from the dead. That's it. And I can't tell you what to pray no more than a man can come to me and tell me, man, I'm having problems at home with my wife. What should I say, Pastor? And for me to go, well, if you just say, I'm going to write this down for you, repeat after me, all these things, take this and your wife will be happy with you again. If I could, man, I could make a mint. I mean, I'd be rich. Just say this and your wife will be happy with you. No more than I can tell you what you need to say in order to reconcile your heart. I don't know where you're at, but I do know this. Paul tells us clearly in Romans, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So just confess, Jesus is your Lord. So the only prerequisite for taking communion is that you're a believer in Jesus. It says on the night before he was betrayed that he had all his disciples together, and he took the bread and he broke it, and he said, "This is for my body. This is my body broken for you." And then he took a cup and he blessed it. He says, "This is my blood poured out for your sin." In just a moment, we're going to stand once everybody's served, and we're going to take communion together. So today, I ask you to consider Jesus. his ministry and the miracle that he's done in your life. You can be thankful for that. His resurrection, which means if he's resurrected, then everything else he said is true too. I can believe and I can trust in him. Jeff, could you? God, I pray over these sacraments, Lord. God, I pray as we take them that we're reminded that you sent Jesus for us, and his body was broken, and his blood was spilt so that we could have a relationship with you. It's not about religion. It's not about our ability to do to be better people or to be good people or to get our way in, God. It's not about karma and getting what we deserve, because when we come to you, we don't get what we deserve. You're not an impersonal God who doesn't care about us. In fact, you care so much for us that you took our place. You're not a God that measures how good we are on how much you love us, but you loved us before, while we were still yet sinners. You sent your son to die for us. God, I pray that there's one person this morning that would make a decision to follow you or to come back to you. And God, as we take this bread, we remember what you've done for us. Would you stand with me this morning? Would you take the bread with me? Would you take the cup? Something we do here after the word is we always respond in worship. It's one thing to sing songs of praise at the beginning. It's another one after you've heard the word for us to respond again. So during this time, as we go back into a song, if you need prayer for any reason, maybe you need a miracle, and you just want to be prayed for, a sickness or something going on in your life, you want a miracle, we're here to pray for you. If you've never accepted Jesus and you want someone to pray with you over that or something going on in your life, we're here to pray with you. So during this time, we're going to open up this area here. If you just come up here, we'll pray with you, and then we'll come back, and I'll close, and we'll go get our kids.